Hey everybody, welcome to the Sana Q&As. This is Meredith Miller from Inner Integration. I've got another question here. This person says, Dear Meredith, your channel helped me get out of a physically, emotionally, and spiritually abusive relationship with a narc after over 4.5 years. I thank you deeply. But after listening to your channel, I realized that not only am I the daughter of an alcoholic narc who is no more, but sister to an older brother who was also a narc and sexually abused me as a child. And before my relationship with the narc, I dated a bipolar man who was an angel compared to the narc. He wasn't abusive at all. It just didn't work out as a relationship. As I keep watching each of your videos, I have begun to identify with many narcissist qualities and keep wondering if I am one as well. I have an incredibly supportive mother who has seen me through all, but my greatest fear is that one day she won't be around. I won't have her support and will spiral out of control. My ex-narc lives right across from us and knows exactly when I'm home, can see me cooking in the kitchen, or knows when I turn off the light, etc. I have tried to be no contact, but even though I am not communicating with him, stalk him on social media. My soul is tired, Meredith. Sometimes I feel like I'm giving up on life. How do I move on from everything? Thank you for all that you do. So first of all, I'm glad that you got out, and I'm really happy that my videos helped you. Good job taking that decision and getting out of there. I can totally see why your soul is tired. We were all exhausted getting out of these relationships. On top of that, having the guy live next door to you must feel like re-traumatization on the daily. Like always wondering when he's watching, what he's seeing, feeling like you're being stalked. It's not a safe environment. My question on that is, how soon can you move? That's not a safe environment. You're never going to feel comfortable there. You can manage that with dark drapes and dark curtains and keeping your windows closed and hiding away as much as possible so he can't see you and, you know, the lights and what you're doing in your house. But he's always going to be there, and you're always going to feel like he's watching you. Even if one day he moves on and he's not stalking you as much as the next person, you're still going to be constantly re-traumatized by him living there. So I would really, really strongly consider, how soon can you plan to move out of there? Another question I want to ask you is, have you sought therapy for the sexual abuse from your brother? I highly recommend finding a local ally that you can work with on an ongoing basis, who accepts your insurance, a therapist who really gets this situation, who can help you through that, because there must be some deep shame in there, probably stuff that you haven't even really been willing to look at. When it's a familial relationship that caused the sexual abuse in childhood, really, really damaging. On top of that, if there was denial from other family members, double damaging, double traumatizing. So I would highly recommend that you get some help from that, from a local therapist, a local ally, and interview people. Make sure that you find a good match. Keep looking until you find a good match. Don't give up. If the first person doesn't really get you, you don't feel like they're really in tune with you and your situation, just keep looking until you find the right match. If you are identifying qualities of a narcissist in yourself, you might want to watch a video that I did on that, something of that nature. It was in the title, when you recognize narcissistic tendencies in yourself, something like that. And the reality is that you become like the people you surround yourself with, so be careful who you're letting near you. Be really careful. And if you are recognizing those tendencies, those traits in yourself, good job at the self-awareness, at recognizing that you have those tendencies. The next step is to take action to eradicate those things that you don't like about your personality. You have the self-awareness, which means you have the capability of changing yourself, versus someone who sees nothing in themselves. They see nothing wrong. You know, the true narcissist who sees nothing wrong with who they are. They're always right. Everybody else is wrong, and everybody should just do what they want, and then everything would be fine. That's not you. That's not what you're saying. You're saying you recognize some of those tendencies. We all had narcissistic fleas. I talk about that in that other video as well. To get more information, listen to the video. But recognize that it might be that you just have a bad case of fleas. It might be that you have learned some of those narcissistic traits, and you can unlearn those by teaching yourself something different. right? It starts with self-awareness and then comes the action. Now, regarding your dependency on your mom, you need to find that support inside yourself so that you can feel self-reliant, right? Even if your mom isn't the abusive one, if you are dependent on her, if you are dependent on someone outside yourself, that's the truest codependency right there. It's great to have support from people, but when she's not there, how are you going to take care of yourself if you're dependent on her? One day she won't be there. One day your mom will die, and she will probably die before you. That's the reality of life. One day she will not be there, so you need to heal your dependency patterns. Not just because one day your mom is going to die, but so that you don't continue to attract more manipulative people who you're going to transfer that dependency to. So it's good that you notice that you have a dependency issue. Now you need to take action towards self-reliance, you meeting your emotional needs first and foremost, before you look to other people, you giving yourself a sense of approval, you giving yourself permission to set boundaries, to have opinions, to have feelings, versus putting that outside yourself. And so how do you get to the bottom of that? Well, if I were you, I would ask yourself some questions like, what specific kind of support does your mom give you? What do you really value about her? In what ways do you really feel supported by your mom? Really reflect on that and journal those answers so you start to see what that is. You start to identify what that is, because whatever that is, that's what's missing inside of you. So once you know what that is, then you can ask the question, well, how can you do that for yourself? How can you support yourself in that way? In the way that you're relying on your mom, how can you do that for yourself? So first recognize what it is that she's giving you that you need. That's what you're lacking. Then figure out how you do that for yourself. Then you will be repellent to abusive types in the future, because they smell that. They smell when somebody is dependent emotionally, when somebody needs someone else's approval, when somebody needs to people please, to feel like they have a sense of self-worth. Abusers smell that. That's how we became targets for them. So when you become self-reliant, when you learn how to manage your own emotional hygiene, when you learn how to take care of yourself, you don't need an abuser. You don't have that lack and need that they will smell and come in and try to fill, and then flip it around on you. So if I understand what you're saying here, it sounds like you're stalking him, the neighbor, your ex, on social media. Check out the video I did on that. Something about when you're stalking your ex. Some other person asked the same exact question. You're not alone in that. Most people do that in some form, either on the internet and social media or by drive-bys, driving by their work, driving by their office, driving by their home, driving by places they hang out, going to places where they think they might run into them. So many of us did that. It's part of the obsession part of the PTSD, but you got to shift out of that if you want to empower yourself. It's contributing to your exhaustion. It's a big piece of your exhaustion, and it's teaching your subconscious that you're still living in this reality, because your subconscious can't tell the difference between what you're remembering and imagining or what's really happening. Every time you stalk him on the internet, it's like he's right there. It's like he's doing all the things that he did when you guys were together. It's like that's still very, very much alive, and you're living in the past and not the present. So you need to stop the stalking behavior. That's another boundary, and that's a boundary you have to have with yourself. And essentially, all boundaries, first and foremost, are boundaries we have with ourselves, because we have to uphold those boundaries. Those are personal limits that we set, and we and only we are responsible for those. It's no one else's responsibility. It's our responsibility to set and uphold those boundaries. And in doing so, we raise our self-esteem. We raise our self-respect. We raise our self-worth. And we start living a life that makes a lot more sense for us. Your neighbor being the narcissist. I did a video on that too, maybe a couple months ago or so. Something about when the neighbor is the narcissist, or when the narcissist is your neighbor. I had that experience. It was horrifying. It was not a romantic involvement. It was just narcissists, psychopaths living next door, and then the smear campaign and the flying monkeys on that block. So it's a horrible situation. The sooner you can move out of there, the better, because you're not going to feel like you're at peace there. You can learn to manage it. You can learn to create new boundaries right now, which is a big, big lesson that you're going to be learning. But at a certain point, you're going to need to make the cut for your well-being. Otherwise, you're going to be expending so much energy in managing your safety, your sense of security, your sense of sovereignty living next door to him. You also mentioned feeling like you're giving up. And, I want to tell everybody, if you feel like you're giving up on life, you really got to take an honest look at what you're committed to. Like when I was giving up, I will be 100% honest here. When I was giving up, I was 100% committed to the past, to the story, to the blame, to the victimhood. They did this, they did that. I'm so angry about this. Oh, this happened. Oh, this happened. Yeah, of course I wanted to give up. I was living in that reality. I was living in the past. There was no meaning, there was no purpose, there was no reason to go on when I was 100% committed to the past. I had to reorient myself to be 100% committed to my well-being, to my self-care, to the present moment and moving forward, to step by step by step moving forward, shifting out of the past, shifting out of that story, shifting out of the blame and victimhood, shifting into the self-empowerment of 100% self-responsibility, taking the reins of my destiny in my hand and changing the things I didn't like about my life. Right? The first thing was my own mind, was me being committed to the past. And that's where you're at. It's going to be recognized. It's going to be a lot harder for you to overcome this when you're living next door. It's a lot easier to escape the place, to get away. Though equally, you can escape a place and get away from the source of that stress, but discover that the enemy is within your mind. The enemy followed you. It follows you everywhere that you go, even to the most remote locations on this planet. Even if you took a spaceship and left the planet, it will follow you. We have to address this stuff from inside. So take a look at what you're committed to and what do you actually want to be committed to. You got to take that self-responsibility piece if you want to be able to own your life and your choices and feel empowered so that you can move forward. The most important relationship in your life is the relationship you have with yourself. This is where your work is now. This is the work of self-care. It's the me-ridge, not the marriage, which is with another person, but the me-ridge, the relationship that you have with yourself. That is the most important relationship you have. How many of us have neglected that relationship, right? How many of us? And now it's time to own the self-care piece, to heal that relationship before we try to go and create relationships with other people outside of ourselves. How are we ever going to have a healthy relationship with someone else if our relationship with ourselves is not healthy? So work on that. That's where the main work is for you here. Now, I do recommend moving out of that situation as soon as possible, but recognize that just moving is not going to solve the problem. Moving will solve the problem of the continual re-traumatization. Same with no contact or minimal contact. It solves the problem of the constant re-traumatization, which just keeps you on that wheel. But the real work takes place inside. So in a couple days, my self-care mastery course is coming out. I'm going to put the link on here later. I don't have it yet, but after it's launched, it goes live on Wednesday. You're going to be able to check that out if you're interested. I mean, it is so powerful. I've given you 5 domains of self-care. Within each of those 5 domains of self-care, there's 3 to 5 different pieces that you'll need to work on if you want to increase your self-care, if you want to own that relationship with yourself so that you can be healthy, happy, and joyful in this life, so that you can be here to contribute what it is that you want to contribute, so you can create the life that you desire and not the relationships and the life and the things that everybody else wants for you. It's your time now. It's your time to create the life that you want. And so this is the work that we have to do in healing from the codependency. You know, the old patterns of people pleasing, putting other people first, looking for that sense of approval, being dependent on other people to meet those needs, which were not met in our childhood. That's really, we're just repeating that same wound. And we can either keep going in that repetition compulsion, as Freud calls it, keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, or we can take new action and create transformation. That's where the magic is. So I am sending a big hug to you.